Hey mamas, I'm Brooke Miller, registered dietitian, certified lactation counselor, and a mama who has helped hundreds of moms feel like themselves again after baby, boost their energy, mood, metabolism, and even milk supply. Inside of the Postpartum Shift podcast, you'll learn how to take care of your health so that you can show up best for the ones you care about most. Each week, we'll tackle topics like nutrition, exercise, breastfeeding, mental health, and so much more. Plus, you'll get access to guest experts who will share ways to make your pregnancy and postpartum experience easier. Whether you're approaching the postpartum period or you're right in the thick of it, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to be covering a hot topic all about BMI. This is something I get asked about often as a dietitian. Hey, my BMI is this. What does that mean? How seriously should I be taking this number? Considering my circumstances, does this mean that I'm super unhealthy and I need to completely change everything? So we're going to be diving into BMI and all of the things. But before we do, I'm going to read a podcast review, and I absolutely love reading your reviews. If this podcast has been helpful in any way, I just ask that you take 1 minute and leave a quick review. It seriously means the world to me, and it really helps this podcast get in front of other moms who need to hear it. So this mama said, perfect postpartum podcast, 5 stars. What a great find. I appreciate Brooke's insight. It's educative. I cannot talk today, you guys. Honest and encouraging, all in bite-sized segments. So thank you so much for leaving that. I truly try to keep this podcast short and sweet because I know that you mamas are busy. So let's just dive right into BMI. So you might be wondering, what is BMI? So BMI is an equation where it looks at your body weight with your body height. So it is something that you can calculate really quickly. You can just Google BMI and type it in. And the reason that a lot of providers use it is it's a really quick tool that healthcare providers can use to assess your risk for certain health conditions. Now, BMI is not an accurate measurement of our body composition. So it doesn't tell us anything about how much body fat we have versus how much, muscle mass and lean muscle mass we have. It is not a great determinant of what our health says. And so in general, I am not a huge fan of BMI because, again, it's not looking at the body composition. It was created a long time ago for white men. And as we know, men and women have very different body compositions. And even when we start looking at different races and ethnicities, we still have different body compositions from one another as well. And so this doesn't take into account any of that, especially the difference between men and women. It is so drastic. Now, BMI alone does not diagnose any health conditions. It doesn't show, again, percentages of certain things. That's why if you see an Olympic athlete or somebody who is super muscular, they would show up on the BMI scale as obese or overweight, even though you can look at them and see their body fat percentage and know that they're very lean, they're very muscular, they're very healthy, and even though their BMI says obese. Now, when we're looking at some indicators that are a little bit more representative of health, you can look at things like your body fat percentage, your muscle mass percentage, and those things tend to be more accurate in looking at your risk factors for things like heart disease, stroke, diabetes. Now, if we have really low body fat, that can also mean malnutrition. So we want to make sure that, of course, we have a good amount of body fat to help our vitamins and minerals absorption and to make sure that our body is functioning properly. Body fat is important for our hormone health, for regular periods, and also, provides us a source of energy for our body. It protects our organs and helps us maintain body temperature. So we do want to make sure that we have some fat on our body. That is important. And we also want to make sure that we have muscle mass on our body. So both of these are important. We don't want to use BMI really for a child or a teenager's weight and then BMI is not typically accurate for athletes, bodybuilders, children, teenagers, women who are pregnant, older adults who are over the age of 65. So there are definitely a lot of conditions where we don't even want to look at BMI because it's not accurate. And especially when you're in the first few months postpartum, then BMI is not going to be very accurate because you just gained all of this weight to give birth to a new baby. So I actually don't even love BMI, especially for pregnant moms, but also for women who are in the postpartum period, because your body has just drastically went through gaining weight to grow the baby, and then your hormones and metabolism are still adjusting to this postpartum shift that does happen. So something else that research has shown is that BMI and rate of death, it's not super accurate. So BMI doesn't show you necessarily what your family history is. So if you have a family history of diabetes or cardiovascular disease or cancer or anything like that, BMI doesn't look into that at all. So those are just some reasons why I do not love BMI. If you've been wanting to reach your healthiest weight and feel like yourself again postpartum without having to sacrifice your favorite foods or your milk supply, I've got a free workshop just for you. Inside of this free workshop, you'll discover how to boost energy, mood, metabolism, and even protect your milk supply. You'll learn common mistakes that moms make that actually cause exhaustion, mood swings, low milk supply, and weight loss resistance to become worse, things that moms don't even realize. And you'll learn the proven 3-step method to heal your hormones and metabolism after baby, so you can go from surviving to thriving postpartum. Plus, as a free gift, you'll get my postpartum snack guide when you come hang out with us. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes to save your seat today. Spots are limited. See you there. Now, for medical reasons, a lot of times your doctors will take BMI and they will put it in your chart, and sometimes it can be helpful for coding things for reimbursement and medical things. So even as a dietitian, whenever I work with moms and they are getting, their services reimbursed for from their health insurance, a lot of times we do ask for their BMI or their height and weight, and we calculate their BMI and we provide that to their insurance, because most of us are not actually in the normal BMI. So if you have especially any muscle mass, if you're athletic, you are probably actually not going to fall in the normal category. You're probably going to fall in the overweight or obese category. And so it is kind of bizarre, but a lot of times, putting BMI on our medical records, sometimes it can be helpful for insurance to cover certain things, which is also very backwards. So anyway, I could go on and on about insurance coverage, and that's, another topic for another day. So you might be wondering, okay, Brooke, if BMI is not the best indicator of health and BMI is not the end all be all thing that I should be, focused on, what should I focus on for the determinants of my health? So some things that are my favorite to look at are your lab values. So things like our glucose, our hemoglobin A1C, this shows us what our blood sugar is doing. Our cholesterol can be helpful as well. So going to your doctor, it can be your primary care doctor or your OB, but just getting basic labs drawn. And then once you start making changes with your nutrition and your exercise, you can go back in 6 months or a year and see how those lab values improved. Things like blood pressure can be really helpful. You can measure things like waist circumference, which of course this is a little finicky when you are postpartum or pregnant, so that's not necessarily super accurate. You can measure your skin thickness using a skin fold caliper. I did this in college in a lot of my classes, and truthfully, you can have one student do it on your arm and then another student do it on your arm and get completely different results. So if you go for the skin fold caliper, you really need somebody who's very experienced and knows what they're doing with them, because if you have somebody not experienced with those, it's not very helpful. And then there is a DEXA scan, so you can do that, and that can show just what your body composition is. So of course, most of us are not like going to get a DEXA scan, but if that's something that, you want to do and you have the means to do it, then you can absolutely do that. Some other things that I like to look at is, what is your strength and endurance? So if, right now you can only lift 10-pound weights and do 10 reps of bicep curls with this weight, in 6 months from now, how high has your weight gone with what you can lift? Can you now lift 15 or 20 pounds? That shows that you are gaining muscle. That shows that you are gaining strength and endurance. So something I love to look for is, blood pressure, lab values, what your strength and endurance is. So if you can lift heavier weights now than you could 6 months ago, that is great. If you can walk further or faster than you could 6 months ago, that is amazing. So those are some really great ways that you can look at it from an exercise standpoint. I would say progress pics for some people works well for others. Progress pics, I'm not necessarily a fan of like doing those for everybody because the lighting can play a role. What you're wearing can make a difference. So how you're posing can make a difference. So not necessarily the biggest fan of that. I also like looking at numbers of binges or cravings. So if you're the type of person where every single day you have a binge or you have really strong cravings and all of a sudden 6 months later you have one craving a week, that is showing that you are regulating a lot of your hormones and your blood sugar. And so that is a great thing. Getting more sleep. So if you're going from, I love tracking sleep. So you can wear like an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring or anything like that to track your sleep, or you can just look at what time you're going to bed and what time you're waking up. But when you're getting better quality sleep, that is another thing that is a big determinant of your health. And so kind of tracking your sleep and trying to get that number to improve over time, so if that has improved over 6 months, that shows that your health is improving. Energy level. So are you able to keep up with your kids? Are you able to go for a walk? Are you falling asleep at your desk? Are you having energy crashes? So those are some things that I think are just a much, much, much better indicator of health versus looking at the BMI. So I do not think the BMI is a great tool. It is something that I don't take, very literally. I can even look at the BMI chart and it is very inaccurate for my body type. So I've always been athletic and, into sports, and I love going to the weight room. And ever since I was 16, I met with a personal trainer. And so since I was 16, I've been very big into strength training. So this is 20 years of my life. So I do carry more muscle than a lot of other women my age. And because of that, my weight, my BMI, shows up as overweight or obese somewhere on the BMI chart. And if I were to try to get in, because I'm not very tall, if I were to try to get at the normal range for BMI, it would include me having to lose muscle mass in order to get there. And I am never a fan of, if you're on a weight loss journey, I think that's okay. It's okay to lose weight or to want to lose weight. But if we are on a journey to try to lose weight and we are losing lots of muscle mass in the process to get there, that is not what we want. So we do not want to be losing muscle mass on our journey, because that ends up slowing down our metabolism. We end up burning less calories and less energy at rest. And as women, as we tend to age, we tend to lose muscle mass just by aging. We tend to lose bone density. So this is why making sure that we maintain muscle mass is so important. So if you're like, well, my doctor told me I had to go from this BMI to this BMI, and all you're losing is water weight and muscle mass in the process, that is not the healthy way to do it. And so that is another reason why I don't love BMI. So instead of focusing on BMI, can you look at your lab values? Can you look at your strength and endurance? Can you look at your number of cravings? Can you look at even something like waist circumference or measuring your skin fold? Again, you would need somebody who is very trained in that, a DEXA scan. Can you look at other areas to look at your actual body composition? And this is another reason why I don't love the scale. We could, and I don't know if you guys have ever Googled this, but there is this really cool picture that was posted, a long time ago. And it put like 5 different women next to each other. They were all different heights and they all weighed the same amount. And you looked at all 5 of these women and it was crazy. They all looked so different. Their body composition was completely different. Their heights were completely different. And it was like, hey, and I want to say these women were like 150 pounds and they all looked drastically different from one another. And that was just a really cool example of, hey, just because you weigh this amount doesn't mean that your body composition looks the same as somebody else. And we can all be healthy at different types of weights. It's not like just because you're this height, this is the only acceptable weight for you. It really depends on what is your lab values doing, what does your muscle mass look like. And so those are much, much better indicators. So again, my top indicators are always going to be things like blood pressure, your lab values, your glucose, your A1C, your cholesterol. So get those lab values in check. And if something's out of range, then okay, then you know that. And now we have a goal set up for the next 6 months to work on fixing that number. And then of course, like I said, you can go through and do like a DEXA scan or something like that. That would at least be a lot more accurate looking at your total body composition versus just BMI or just the scale. So if you have not listened yet to my episode all about the scale, you absolutely need to listen to that. That is one of the first episodes of this podcast. I want to say it was episode 3 or 4. So go all the way back to the beginning, and it's called Should You Ditch the Scale? I want you, if you have not listened to that, or if it's been a while since you've listened to that episode, I want you to go back and listen to that episode right now, because that episode pairs so nicely with this one. And we talk about other non-scale victories and how our relationship with the scale and BMI, how it can be really unhealthy and unhelpful for us when we're trying to reach our health goals, and some things to look out for instead. So I will see you guys in the next episode. Exercise is crucial for our overall mental and physical health, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Something that has helped me stay really consistent with strength training and yoga at home during nap time is the Expecting and Empowered workout app. I love that I can choose how many weeks pregnant or postpartum I am, and the app tells me exactly what to do. Plus, there's cardio, yoga, and strength training options for new moms and moms to be. You can go ahead and click the link in the show notes to get 7 days free and also save 15% off the annual option when you use promo code Nutrition for Mamas. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to the Postpartum Shift podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with a mom friend and leave a written review. This helps the podcast reach and help even more moms. Come say hi over on Instagram at Nutrition for Mamas.